Welcome to Cultimatum, the podcast uncovering the dark realities of cults and human trafficking. I'm your host, Anonymous Andrew, and each week we dive deep into the manipulation, control, and courageous escapes that define these worlds.
And I'm Melody, Andrew's co-host. Having experienced the depth of a cult firsthand, specifically the House of Yahweh, I am here as an advocate for fellow survivors.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests are their own and do not reflect the official policy or position of Cultimatum or its affiliates. The content discussed on this podcast are based on personal experiences and should not be construed as factual or legal advice. Neither the host nor the guest are liable for any statements made during the episodes. Listeners are encouraged to conduct their own research and seek professional advice where appropriate.
And before we dive into today's episode, we want to issue a trigger warning. Some episodes may cover explicit and potentially disturbing subjects such as sexual abuse, rape, human trafficking, suicide, and other sensitive subjects. Listener discretion is advised. Hey, Cultimatum fans, before we dive into today's episode, we need a tiny favor from each of you.
That's right. If you love what you hear, please take a moment to rate and review us on Apple and Spotify.
Your support helps us to reach new listeners and bring more awareness and attention to these important topics.
So tap that star rating, drop a quick review, and help us spread the word. It really does make a difference.
Thank you so much for tuning in and for your amazing support. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Now let's get started with the show.
Here we go. Greetings and welcome back to another episode of Cultimatum, the culture of cults and human trafficking. And human trafficking is what we have for you tonight. So here is my co-host Melody to tell you all about her.
Thank you, Andrew. Today on Cultimatum, we're honored to welcome a truly courageous and inspiring guest. Her name is Allred. Allie is a survivor of human trafficking, kidnapping, domestic violence, and sexual assault. After escaping her traumatic circumstances and facing loneliness that often comes with leaving such situations, she turned her pain into purpose. She is now the founder of Survivors to Safety, an organization dedicated to providing critical resources and support and a sense of community to fellow survivors. Allie's here to share her story and some knowledge and information with us. Allie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on, you guys. It's such an honor and a privilege to not only be on this podcast, but to be able to spread awareness on human trafficking and the severity and, the brevity of the issue, because, no one wakes up and says, you know what, I'm going to be a prostitute today. We grow up and we want to, be a doctor. I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to play guitar. I wanted to be in the Disney movies. I had no idea. I was raised, Mormon, and so that's a very obviously, we don't even have to get into that, but I grew up and I was sexually abused as a child, and 85% of sex workers have been sexually abused as a child, and so that was my very first vulnerability. By the time I got older, I bounced around from home to home. There was a lot of instability in my life. Second vulnerability, a lot of volatility. Third vulnerability, I started to confuse abuse for love, and I started to kind of not regard for myself. And surely enough, I kept putting myself in situations that ended me up, in even worse situations. And, not by choice, but because I was so sick and abused at such a young age, and that perception of abuse and love was so skewed that I attracted people and energies similar to the people that violated me at such a young age, right? This is really prominent for sex workers because as they get older, only 1% of human trafficking survivors make it out alive, because not only are they going to not leave because of all the financial, some of these women don't have birth certificates, socials. When I left the life, I had a hospital gown on my back, which we'll get into. And that's what I started started from. But where I started, I was a kid. And as I got older, I turned to drinking. I had to cope somehow with everything that I was going with. I became a big party girl. There was a lot of assault and rape during my college times. I started feeling a little sick mentally around, early 20s. I checked myself into an outpatient facility. I got diagnosed with bipolar 1, which is another vulnerability. I had mental illness and now I had an addiction, which is what are we on the fifth vulnerability? Um, so I had somehow gotten my life together, become a medical rep. And in 2020, I get a call from a guy I met in an outpatient therapy program after I had got my diagnosis that I participated in. I never heard a man so hysterical in my whole entire life. I eventually went to go check on him because he said he needed me to check on him. I ended up getting kidnapped. And, ultimately after that, I was not in a good way. I started dating my dealer who, almost killed me. I lost a child, was drowned in a bathtub, got aspiration of fluid in my lungs. Like there was a plethora of things that also made me vulnerable. Um, Following that, it just kind of took a turn.
Can I jump in?
Sure.
Just I think just because we haven't had many human trafficking victims or survivors on, so you were working at 20 and somebody called you and said I need your help, and then you went to help him, and then you just said I got kidnapped. Can you walk us through what happened
Right.
there?
Yeah. And so in 2020, I was about 25 at the time. I had met when I got my diagnosis for bipolar, they had recommended an outpatient therapy program. There was a group of 5 of us that were really close. One of them committed suicide. So the 4 of us got really, really close. One of them was an immigration lawyer. Who I babysat his kids. We were friends. And, I get this call 5 years fast forward from the outpatient therapy, and he's hysterical. He's like, my ex wife is going to take the kids. He can't breathe. He's having a whatever is happening with him. I said, I've been drinking wine and watching Grey's Anatomy, but you can Uber me there and I'll check on you. I get there. There's a whole table full of guns, passports, multiple cell phones, cash. My stomach just drops. I go to leave. He grabs me by the back of my hair. He slams me down and proceeds to beat and assault me for what felt like days. I humanized myself in order to get out. I used the Oprah tactics in order to get out by saying my name, my favorite movies, my favorite color, like trying to, I have siblings, I have parents, trying to make him humanize me. And he finally, briefly let me go and I fled. 2 weeks later, I tried to take my life. He threatened to, send people after me. He was hypothetically laundering money for the cartel. So he did have ties, and there were cars following me. I spent many sleepless nights, doing a lot of cocaine with my dealer, who eventually ended up being that domestic I was talking about. When I finally got away from him after like the 27th time, because again, I started believing abuse was love. I started getting ketamine treatments after I went into hiding from my domestic. I finally left and started getting ketamine treatments from a doctor. This doctor sold me a dream of safety and security and moved me from Utah, my home state, to New Hampshire in 24 hours um, to then exploit me and, professionally and sexually with other women. And he was actually my prescribing doctor at the time. And he took away my meds or withheld them. He overprescribed, withheld them. I'm on Xanax, Ambien, Percocets, you name it. Like I'm taking all that while he's stashing a full bar. So I'm very sick. I'm a very sick woman at that point. I'm emaciated. I'm so anxious. I have trichotillomania, which means you rip out your hair when you're stressed from it as a child. I still struggle with that. I ended up going into a psychosis. I lived in the woods. He had me in the middle of the woods, 30 minutes from the closest gas station, and the grocery store. And, I had no money. I had no ways of working. I had no means to get out of that situation. And when I went to jail after being in a psychosis, 2 weeks later, uh, Homeland Security came in. And, after that, that's really what put me on the start of a really scary journey. Um,
You didn't mention, and maybe on purpose, where did this occur? What state?
New
What?
Hampshire.
New Hampshire. Okay.
Hmm.
All right. So he kidnapped you, and you ended up in this cabin in the woods, or something like that, right? You said.
Yep.
Was he prostituting you out at that point at this cabin?
So what it was doing, so these are two separate, I know it can get confusing. These are two separate perpetrators. One is the one who kidnapped me was an immigration lawyer, and the one who sexually exploited me was an ER doctor, right? And so after I got kidnapped, after I had been in my domestic, I went to see a doctor to treat me. And he ended up telling me he can provide me safety in a different state and then made me work for free and provide sexual acts in order to live there.
So, right up the top, that's a felony because that's crossing state lines. I know
Right.
somewhere in there's something about human trafficking. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah. So he actually, when I went to jail, he showed up to jail. He flew from Utah to New Hampshire and showed up to jail to my court case with like a bag of medication saying she needs to take this and that. He tried to get custody of me like Britney Spears. Like I would have been in his custody. Isn't that
And
crazy?
did they? Obviously, the judge said no at some point, or
Yes.
okay.
And that's when Homeland Security came in to talk to me. After that, I was kind of just thrown in the system. I was in and out of detoxes, halfway houses, shelters, um, you name it, I was there. Safe houses. I was really just doing everything I can to get my feet together, and stay sober and do everything I wanted because, mind you, I didn't want to get sober at the time. Unfortunately, I had to pee in a cup in order to have a roof over my head. But so I was a dry drunk. I kept relapsing. I kept having to go back to detox. I kept, not getting my shit straight. And that's just because my head was spinning. I was traumatized. I was vulnerable. I had been abused for so long and manipulated. And not saying that like I didn't make bad decisions along the way, because certainly I did. But at the same time, abuse is abuse and exploitation is exploitation. The only difference from human trafficking and domestic violence is money. That's the only thing. Abuse plus money equals human trafficking.
Let's build a timeline because you're right. There's two stories here, and there's two different perpetrators, and I'm
There's actually four. We haven't
okay.
even gotten there yet.
We haven't gotten there yet. Okay, let's
Yep.
just clear up the first two. From what age to what age were you? I guess that was the prostituting. The first.
Yep. So 25 to, so when I actually, so what they charged him with, the doctor, so the immigration lawyer with the kidnapping, he got, charged with kidnapping. That was a separate case. Then the doctor was the one who was exploiting me, and sexual exploitation is also, goes hand in hand with human trafficking, correct? And, you know, I was being groomed, sexually exploited before I even was forced into prostitution by a Romeo pimp who I actually met while I was at one of the halfway houses that I was at. He posed as my boyfriend. He sold me a dream. He's like, "Why do you need to live here?" He heard all my vulnerabilities, heard my story, heard that I had been kidnapped, heard that I had been exploited by a doctor, and all these foul things had happened to me. And he took that and he ran with it. He goes, "I can get you a job as a dancer. You can, I can get you in a new car." He promised me food, shelter, clothes, everything I didn't have, right? And, certainly, I had exhausted all my resources.
Would he be number three?
Yep, aside from my sexual assault as a child, yes.
Yeah. Well,
And
yeah.
so,
We're going to keep that not including because that was part of the Mormon Church, correct?
right,
Okay, which we can address either on another episode
right.
or
Exactly.
some other time.
Exactly. We'll get into that. But,
Okay.
the funny thing is, people don't realize these people prey on your vulnerabilities and they sell you a dream, right? That's how they get you in. They assess you and you're basically like, an animal in the woods, a bleeding animal in the woods, and they are the predator. They are the sharks. They can sniff you out. They know who's weak. They know who's vulnerable, and that's what happened to me by this Romeo pimp, of selling me a dream to be a dancer. Because I only ended up being a dancer for like 5 minutes before he started. Um, pushing me into escorting and posed it as high end escorting and, quick money. But even though all my money was going to like his bills, I wasn't physically giving him money at that point, but he was grooming me. He was getting me comfortable with the idea of escorting. He was getting me comfortable with the idea of dancing. And, not shortly after, I was a high end, dancer in Beverly Hills. And, as soon as I started to catch on to his game, the next thing I know, I'm back in Worcester, Massachusetts, or hood area of Massachusetts. And I was being passed off to a gorilla pimp and forced into prostitution full time. And a gorilla pimp means that, a Romeo pimp takes money by manipulation, where a gorilla pimp takes money by force.
What? And I know the answer to this, I think. What's the difference between prostitution and escorting?
So there's not. It's just that escorts tend to make more money.
And
Um,
they're more
Ultimately, at
VIP.
the end of the day, it's more, I mean, they're not streetwalkers, which is a type of prostitution. They're not having to, walk the blade. But I mean,
You're not. You're
I
you're
have,
you're you're like on a website, or you have to belong to a club or
yep,
some sort of
yep,
secret society. I'm
yep,
very familiar with it, which
yep,
maybe later we'll talk about. But
yep.
I knew that, but I just wanted to make sure for the audience and for our conversation. So escorting is prostitution, just more of like on a classier level, if you can even. I don't think that word
Yeah,
belongs in that
if
sentence,
you could
but
even say that. I
yeah.
mean,
Right.
like, it's just they get paid more, and often, they have to work less because their prices are higher. And a lot of people think escorts are, not being forced into prostitution or have pimps, but
Oh, they
typically
are.
they
Yeah.
they do. Yeah.
Although
So
although I do know some escorts, I should say I did know that were voluntarily doing it, but so
yeah, and that's, a very rare percentage of people that haven't been abused prior, that have confused abuse for
correct.
love, and haven't done it out of necessity and just are thriving. And you know what? I'm all about safe sex work. I promote it all the time. If you're going to do it, be safe about it, be
Right.
smart. Because we can't prevent, someone from making a bad decision, but we can educate them on the consequences that can happen. But it's very rare for, just the top players are the ones that are there by choice. And that's not a lot.
And I don't know if this, what I'm about to bring up, belongs in this discussion right now, but I'm just going to throw it out there. But for years and years and years, we fought the drug. So from the Ronald Reagan days, just say no to drugs, and Nancy Reagan, and all the billions of dollars we fought to fight the drug cartels in the war.
Yep.
Now it's all legal in almost every state. Marijuana is legal, and um, the point I'm getting at is that where you see where the states that prostitution is legal or escorting is legal, like not Nevada, the whole state, but I think Reno or
Like
whatever
New
part.
York, and
Right.
that's where I was.
It's legal in New York, escorting?
It's decriminalized.
Decriminalized. Okay. So is there less of victimization when it's legal?
I'm only going based upon what my pimp told me, but he had me primarily work in New York because he said, well, I couldn't get in trouble there.
Oh, okay.
I know it's a lot. But I mean, the gorilla pimp who I told you about, who I got passed off to, I didn't talk to him for 3 days because he was a stranger. I just got ditched with him, right? And all of a
Mm,
sudden, my so called boyfriend disappeared, was gone, like vanished, like
mm.
Casper the Friendly or not so friendly ghost.
And that's another thing. When you're escorting or prostituting, a lot of times your pimp or your manager or sometimes there's a mother. They call her the
Hmm.
mother.
Yep.
Yeah. And I see, I know, I have
You
a
know
whole
your
backstory.
stuff.
And the mother, except what I was getting at was that the pimps or the escort managers are the boyfriends. They can be your
Yep.
boyfriends, but okay. I'm sorry. I
So
kind of made a
essentially,
left turn there.
he trafficked you to the other guy. Is that what
Yep.
we're to understand from that
And
story?
so the best way to put that is grooming. So he was getting me ready to, and slowly. So think about it this way, right? If you put a frog in boiling water, it's going to hop out. But if you put a frog in lukewarm water and turn up the heat, it's not even going to know it's dying. So that's what he was
So
doing to me.
we
He
use
put me
that
in the water and he was turning up the heat. And it wasn't until I was slowly dying that he passed me off to the gorilla pimp where he, almost killed me.
we use
You
that
know,
analogy, Melody, right? All the time.
Yes, I use
yep,
that as and the cult analogy too. People in cults don't realize they're in cults because you're not exposed to the deep underbelly of it right off the bat. You're exposed to all the good stuff on the outside first, and they
yep,
slowly start introducing the more bizarre and crazy teachings are at the center in the middle. But yeah,
right.
very very good analogy because yeah, I can relate to that.
Well, and another great analogy that, my VP Meg always says, she always says, these perpetrators, these traffickers don't walk in and go, "Hi, my name is John. I'm going to strangle and traffic you." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like they don't do that.
they
They come
charm
in
you.
charming.
They love bomb you at the
Love bombing.
beginning.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. They are so charming. You never pay a bill. They would die for you. They would live for you. They would bleed for you. Like they're
Just
your
like the
ride or
cults,
dies.
just like the cults, when you join a
Right.
cult or a religious organization, whatever it is, in the first 6 months, whatever, they throw everything at you so lovely, and they even throw you parties and blah blah blah,
Right.
until they got their claws into you, and then out comes indoctrination and
Right.
the do's and don'ts. Okay, um, we have time, and I'm
Oh, I
just
haven't even finished.
oh, I know you haven't. Maybe I'll let you finish because I have a bunch of questions. So, but no, continue with your story, and we'll circle back.
Okay. And if there's a question that is, wants to jump out your brain immediately, let me know. But so anyway, so I didn't even talk to this man for like 3 days. And keep in mind I had a drug problem at the time and a drinking problem. So I had tried to get sober several times, during this time. But like how do I really cope when I'm that frog in boiling water with nothing? Like I cope with alcohol. So I relapsed in his car 3 days later. Immediately, he, took the paraphernalia away from me. And, I got some air dusters at Walmart or something cheap, stupid, and, almost OD'd on it. And, he took the drugs away from me and said, I don't trust you with your money. I need to keep you safe. Like, you need to give your money to me and I can help you manage it. And that was the first transaction that I made to him. I trusted him. I said, okay, yep. He wants to help me. He's going to get me better. I'm going to get sober. He's going to take care of me. I was in, a state with no friends, no family, nowhere to go. I didn't know my surroundings. Like the only person I had was him, and, it was really sad because, a lot of my family, growing up how I grew up, didn't want to help me. They, they thought they had utilized all their resources and time and energy and they were just spent, which is unfortunate because, I understand how people have to create boundaries, but like, I would never not show up for my family when they needed me the most. So that just, is crazy to me,
No,
just based upon my beliefs.
and
Yeah.
that is heartbreaking. And I know we don't want to focus on the cult stuff, but I do have a quick question that's kind of related.
Sure.
Did this kind of begin from you leaving and running away from your cult situation and then you fell into this situation? Did that play a part in it?
I never really truly believed what they were teaching me, at a very young age. So I kind of removed myself, but I felt a need to rebel, certainly. Um, and
Okay.
I felt a need to be different, certainly. And I felt a need to be completely opposite of what they were, which, if they're going to tell me not to drink, I'm going to drink. If they're going to tell me to not have sex, I'm going to have sex. You know what I mean? I
Right.
put myself in a
Right.
lot of bad situations based upon how I was raised. And not that my family, isn't great and doesn't, give me love and support, but not all of them do. And that's just the reality.
Right.
I have a very, very large family that actually does come from, they still have active polygamy in it. And only 2 to 3 family members talk to me out of, I've had 3 last names and I've never been married. That's how many family members I have, and no one talks to me. despite, all the efforts I've tried to change my life. The only people that talk to me are my grandparents and my mom, and sometimes my brother here and there, but and my cousin, 4.
And
Wow.
they know your story. Okay.
Yeah, it's like honestly, it makes me a little sick sometimes thinking about it. But this isn't uncommon for human trafficking survivors. They have no one. They don't know who to trust. They've been let down not only by the system, but by their loved ones, and that's where it usually starts. Like I said, 85% of sex workers had been abused as a child, and then 70% have been in domestics prior. Um, with that only 1% making it out. And how many times does it take to even get out of a domestic? You know what I mean?
And a lot of and
Yeah.
we're going to probably get sidetracked again here, but I do know that a lot of the women who do human trafficking, so you probably came along, not just men, but women, like the mothers or
Yep.
they were trafficked at one point in their time.
Yep.
So they graduate, so they got out of it, but
They
now
kind of become the bottom bitch,
exactly. Wow.
and
Yep.
that's kind of what ends up happening. And I know many, many
Did
people
you ever
who
make it to that level?
I did not because my gorilla pimp he's been doing this a very long time. He's actually a rapper. So I had I can't say right now because there is certain things going on behind the scenes. But obviously it's not Diddy. And that was just
That was the
devastating for
first one
all.
that came to my mind, but okay.
Yeah, obviously it's not him, but it was very, I had dates that and clients that were Vogue models, and I had dates that were on ankle monitors for homicide investigations.
By
You
the
know what I
way,
mean?
what happened, and again, I don't know, get distracted here, but what Diddy did was it's been going on for 50 years in Hollywood. Oh, and
Yeah.
with the Epsteins and anybody who's got money had all these sex parties, and it was exclusive. I wish to say this, but we had a president in the White House who I think was involved with a lot of this stuff. So I'm not going to mention
I'm not even
him.
going to get into that because we could talk forever about
We
that,
could,
but
but this okay, yeah. Well, let's not continue.
yeah. And so anyway, so at the time I think he had been doing it, 20 my gorilla pimp had been doing it, 20 plus years. He usually had like 8 women at a time, and like I think by the end of, he put 8 stitches in one of his girls' heads, and everything that he raps about he always claimed that it was true. And like trust me, I found some really gruesome songs that had made me sick to my stomach, that made me so nervous and so scared. And he threatened me often, threatened to kill me often. He made me very, very petrified of him. He had been doing it a long time. And, by the time I met him and he met me, I think he had just tried to make a transition out of that life, but needed the money and to fund his rap career. I think he never really let me know there were other girls, but I knew there were, um based upon the little trips he would make here and there, and he would leave me alone to work. And like he also had me selling crack, in the streets of New York. Like, so not only did he traffic me from Massachusetts, he took me to New York. He took me cross country. I got a prostitution charge in Utah. I was in Vegas. I was in Colorado. Like he had me completely, he knew which apps to use so the feds couldn't track. Like he was quick with it. He was smart with it. And
One step
yeah.
ahead.
Yep.
Like he was always one step ahead
Yep.
until he
And
wasn't.
and
Until I had to outsmart him.
can we assume he's still actively doing this?
He is. But that I cannot confirm nor deny, but I have a strong inkling that he won't be
Okay.
Much longer.
much longer.
Well, that's good news.
Well, let's the white elephant in the room. So between everything after Epstein and Harvey Weinstein and all that stuff, when Diddy got caught, I think it opened the eyes of America that this has been going on. So I think the scrutiny or the eyes are going to be on all these high profile rappers and rock stars and Hollywood producers. I think the pressure's on. The screws are turning.
Yep.
Yep.
And unfortunately too, so obviously, with my I hate to say this, with my experience with the federal agencies and the communications that I have with them through Survivors to Safety per se, they tell me a lot of federal agents are slammed, not with the cases they normally should be on, but ICE.
Wow. Okay. And,
Wow.
and that is of recent because of who's in the White
Yep.
House? Okay.
Yep. I was just told that recently by a federal agent like last week.
Well, sure, because I'm just going to say it. The Latino world is I would how do I say this without the Latina woman is sought after a lot in this industry.
Correct.
So
Exotic women always are.
Yeah,
Exotic women always are. Anything people can't really have normally is what they want.
Right. So now, because they're here illegally, this is what the man in the White House is doing, is trying to clean that up. So, but we're not going to get political here. So
we don't have to get political.
No.
This is just something that I was informed. That was very unfortunate, but it's with my certain situation, I had to outsmart him. Despite people coming and looking for me, or there were either people important looking for me or no one at all. And I ended up having to get him to trust me enough to let me work alone. And this is where I think he was with other women, or dealing drugs or doing etc. But he would leave me alone with no more than $5 at a time. Every transaction I had, he would wait outside the date and demand the money as soon as I got in the car. And he was with breathing down my neck 24/7. So I got him to finally trust me. And I was in a shitty hotel in the Bronx. I heard a woman get beaten, raped next to me all night in the paper thin walls, and I was in fetal position, just so triggered, eating vending machine food to survive off of. And I said, enough is enough. I'm either going to get out or die trying, And so the next day, I called up a friend who I hadn't reached out to like anyone to help me, even though multiple people had reached out to help me. I was terrified. My friend put me up in an Airbnb in New York. I had no other option but to work on my own. 3 days later, someone, broke into my Airbnb and brutally raped me. They got through the key code, so they must have been stalking me, and had been a client of mine. And I 6 days later, I get set up by who I believe was my pimp, who threatened to do such things if I ever were to leave. And I got beaten and raped and pistol whipped and left naked and robbed and left naked face down in the streets of Brooklyn, where NYPD and the ambulance found me, and that's how I ended up, getting out.
Wow.
When was that?
November 11th, 2024.
Last year.
Yes.
Wow. That's
It
I
hasn't even
can't
been a
believe
year
where
yet.
you are right now.
Thank you. I've worked really
That's
hard.
that's impressive to say the least. But I'm sure you're still deconstructing, you're still healing. This is a process, and it's really a lifelong process.
It really is. When I got out, I was so emaciated. I was homicidal. I was suicidal. I was all the sidals. I was unmedicated bipolar 1. I was an alcoholic, and I was institutionalized for 2 months, because I literally wanted to go kill all these people. I was so upset with what happened to me, and I had to be, calmed down. I was like, I'm either going to kill them or kill myself. That's how I felt. I felt like I could. I left the life in a hospital gown. I had no documentation, nothing.
So forget this rapper that we don't want to talk about, that we don't want to name. Has any of the other ones been charged, arrested, prosecuted?
So the only one, and I reported all of them, the only one that got charged was the kidnapping case. And I still haven't even won the civil suit, and it's been 5 years. And the reason I can't win the civil suit is because it's in Utah, and post my kidnapping, I became a prostitute. So yeah, I sued for $1 million, and I didn't see a cent. I didn't even see victim compensation. I went and testified alone.
This is where our government is amiss, wrong, and the senators and they need to change the laws for the victims so they can so they labeled you a prostitute, so you were no longer a victim, you were a criminal.
Yep.
Yep. No,
Yep.
that's
But
not
also
right.
remember, she
So
was trying to sue a lawyer.
right, I was just gonna say that. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was suing someone who was a professional, and I
Right.
was just a victim.
I always ask this question when it comes up because I'm in recovery. Are you in recovery now, 12 steps and all that? Or
So I did really use AA and NA as a crutch in the beginning, but after I was released from the psych ward, I was on 12 different medications and I had to utilize marijuana to be able to help me. I just take 5 milligrams edible at night to help my PTSD. And but I didn't start off that way. But I haven't drank since November 24th.
Well, congratulations.
Yep. And I want to say this too, like I'm a big advocate on, do whatever looks best for your recovery.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, no, no.
A lot of people like NA and AA weren't for me personally as a survivor because I felt like I got preyed on, because of my story and I was too vulnerable for
Which
those
is a
rooms.
problem. It is a
Yes.
problem.
And it happened to me time and time and time and time again. And I kept trying because I needed the message, but I just got preyed on. And unfortunately, because I was smoking weed, I wasn't really accepted in that community. However, I think having a sponsor is incredible, just like having a mentor is incredible. If you don't have a sponsor, get a mentor. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I don't do drugs anymore, which is amazing. I haven't done drugs since, I left New York, so November 11th or 10th of last year, and in this November, I will have my very first year of recovery ever. uh,
Celebrate it. If you don't have a group to go to, find
yep,
family, friends, or somebody that to go to a sober club or go do
yep,
something that you want to do and celebrate that moment.
yeah.
Because that's an achievement that
Thank you.
I
Thank
went
you.
through,
It's
and
going to
it's
be a
not
very,
easy.
very big deal for me.
Good.
I do have people that wanted to speak on my behalf, like, at a meeting. So I definitely think that would be cool. Personally, I just haven't been in the rooms for a while. So I don't know what I'll do, but I have to do something.
Absolutely.
Something to celebrate. You're right. But like, I literally thought I would never get out. I literally thought I didn't even get anything in my name, all in my name until like a week ago.
Wow.
Let me ask you a very, I hate to ask this question. Do you think that you're totally safe? That now
Oh, I
you,
know it. They would be so stupid to come towards me. They would
okay.
be so fucking stupid. I have made myself so isolated and so secured. I know the PD here. I mean, like with my job for Survivors to Safety, like,
Okay.
we work alongside PD and federal agencies.
Gotcha.
Like, they should be more scared of me than anything. Like, and plus, I'm not scared. Like, I've survived death multiple times,
Mm,
I've flatlined multiple times. If I'm not going to die now, I'm not supposed to die.
right.
And
No.
if I do die, I'm die for a cause, and people will actually pay attention to human trafficking.
Wow.
Okay. Good. No, no,
Um,
no, no.
that's
I'm
an excellent segue to my next
Yep.
question, which I wanted you to go a little bit more into the organization, the Survivors to Safety. Can you talk more
Sure.
about that and explain kind of what it is, what it does, who it's for, all of that?
Right. So I founded Survivors to Safety, obviously, with lived experience. When I got out of the life, I had absolutely no purpose. I created a Facebook and then an Instagram and made a social media platform where I posted relatable content for, survivors to relate to. And then I reached out to them to see if they were safe and needed support. And that just grew a whole team of, just amazing people and survivors that wanted to help and wanted to help the cause. And we turned it into a whole nonprofit. And so now, we have a crisis team, me, Meg, Cassie, who also sit on the board. Meg's our VP, Cassie is our COO. I'm obviously the CEO, but we are hands on. We post relatable content. We reach out to them to see if they're safe. If they're not safe, we get them to detox. We get them, after an intake, we get them to detox. We get them to shelter. We get them to a safe house. We work alongside PD and federal agencies if necessary. We are the liaison from the survivor to the resource they need. We make calls for the resources. we set them up, we support them, we help them with resumes, we help them reintegrate into society through survivor led leadership. But most importantly, we build a family for them. We are their emergency contacts if need be. Like, we love them through the entirety of their journey. And if they crash out, we're going to be there for them anyway, because a lot of these people have no one to pick them up when they're knocked down. You know, we have survivors that literally say to us, I didn't even realize there were other survivors like me out there. Or, I had no one to call but you, and now they call us every day. We have girls that don't eat for 3 days, and we, send them food. We get Uber them to the hospital if they're, injured, and then we create a safety plan for them when upon discharge. I mean, we see so many different situations, right? And so many different cases that would just make you sick. To hear. And like, we bring some of these survivors on. We have a podcast called Pain to Power. And the reason I didn't call it Pain to Purpose is because what these abusers want to take from you is your power. They want to take away your control, your will, your ability, your crown, right? And so the way you're going to get your lick back is get your power back, and then you can get your purpose back.
I am almost in tears because I am trying to figure out. I mean, I'm so impressed, but you aren't even fully healed yourself. You aren't even you're still on
No,
that journey,
certainly not.
and yet you're focusing on helping others, and it brings me to tears. I can't. It's amazing. I don't know how you're doing it, but kudos to you and maybe that's what's getting you through all this is focusing on
It
helping
does.
others.
Every little survivor heals a little bit of me, and my team literally is the only people in the whole entire world that make me not feel insane.
Uh, and I'm gonna back her up on that. So not to go back to the 12 steps, but in the 12-step world, like, so if I did a 12-step call and helped an alcoholic and got him into it helps my sobriety.
Right.
So what she's doing is she's helping other women on the street. I'm curious, only because it's not spoken about a lot, but men are also trafficked, and young
Yep, and the
boys
LGBTQ,
and the LGBTQ. Are you involved with that at all? Or
yep, we
yeah,
provide services to every survivor.
okay, good.
We don't really work with children unless they are with their parent. We
Any
certainly work on
victim.
cases with children. Anyone just because the only reason we don't work with children is because there's CPS for that, and there's, federal agents on top of that. But, the legality, we really can't, but we can support the mothers and support the fathers and support, the partners. And, we support anyone under the sun who has been abused, exploited, or trafficked.
Wow, I'm with
Yeah.
Melody. This is
Yeah.
just an
And
incredible. And
I can relate too, because that's part of the reason I'm doing this podcast is because of my cult experience and wanting to help fellow cult survivors. So we're definitely all kind of using the idea of helping others to aid in our own healing. And I just can't believe how far you've come in such a short period of time. I'm impressed.
Thank you. I somehow managed to get a really good job. I worked as a medical rep. I actually worked in IT, and I got a great job. Hopefully I can do survivors to safety once we're able to get the funding full time. And same with my team. So we'll be doing this 24/7 as if we don't already. We just work 2 full-time jobs, or sometimes 3 full-time jobs, or 4 full-time jobs in some cases, and with some of our women. But we may not have it all figured out, and we never promise that we are going to sell you a dream, but we will walk alongside you through the entire process and show up like nobody ever has had for you. We will show the fuck up every time.
good for you. I am gonna, you know what, Melody? I'm gonna ask her that question because she was in a cult, and I'm just curious. So we didn't obviously address it or get into it, but you were part of a cult. I think you said the Mormons. So you
Yep.
were brought up with religion and God and all that shoved down your throat. Okay. And you got out of that, I don't know what age. I forget what you said, or if you
I
even
was like
said.
12 when
Okay.
yep.
And then the rest of
You
your
went through
story
all of
unfolded.
this. Yeah.
Where are you today in your faith in just do you have a higher power? Do you believe in God? Do you
I
have a
believe in God
religion?
and a higher power and whatever is listening to me up there.
Good.
But I know it's something
Okay.
because I know there is evil in this world, so I know that there is good in this world, and I know there has to be something greater than me that has made me like I used to be so mad at God or whoever was up
Mhm.
there, right? I used to be so upset, and I was like, "Why me? Why me? Why me?" But the second that I said, "You know what? My God made it possible for me to survive and gave me the tools and resources and the
Mhm.
thick skin and the tough stomach to help another survivor because I can be someone else's exiting and survival guide now."
Wow.
Do you think
That's
I'm just
amazing.
curious, and again, I'm not pushing 12 steps. Do you think anything came out of the because when I entered the
100%.
okay,
I think I actually, well, I'm not on video, so I would show you, but in my bag right now, I have my 6 month NA. I
card
have all
chip,
my chips that,
okay,
and it wasn't until I honestly, just personally for me, I don't suggest NA or NA for human trafficking survivors in specific.
agreed.
I think there are other supports like survivors to safety and even domestic violence that are very, very severe.
Yeah.
I think where they feel so vulnerable, it may not be the space for them to be in a room of other vulnerable people because people, tend to bleed on each other when they're not fully healed.
That
But
makes sense.
they need to, I think people in recovery need to utilize
Can I
NANA.
throw a suggestion at you that you
Yeah.
may already know or may have already done? But if
Yeah.
you feel like walking into a 12-step room in the basement of a church or top of a school building, have you done online meetings where you're not only anonymous, but they have no idea what state you're in and you can
Right.
still share your strength, experience, and hope and all that? And
Well, I do that every day
oh,
with
good.
all these women, and these women share to
Okay,
me,
good,
and I
good,
hear a message every day, and that's my meeting. You know
good.
what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. Like for survivors, if there are survivors we work with that we do recommend AA and NA to because they do need that structure, they do need a sponsor. But a lot of times, to the very vulnerable women who can barely hold a conversation with me, I don't want to throw them in a room,
Well,
full
and
of
that's what I'm
men.
saying. Yeah. Now,
You
if you're going to
know.
throw them in a room
That
with
makes
men, and
sense.
there are some sick people still in A, but a person who goes to A or NA who they were sick to begin with, and the drugs and alcohol
Right.
were a symptom, and they covered it
Right.
up. So when they become sober, they're going to go in there. I could tell you stories that make my stomach turn, and I relapsed in 1990 because of what I saw happen in behind the
Right.
scenes of AA. And anyway, I'm thinking that to prevent the women that you're talking about to go into a room and be hit on, just attend a Zoom meeting. That's all I was saying. So
Right.
where
Right.
but as a
And or a
moderator,
women's meeting, I even say. Like
good,
go if you're gonna
good.
go to any meeting, go to a
Go
women's
to a
meeting.
woman's
And
meeting.
that's what I bring
Perfect.
up.
Excellent. Excellent.
I personally I think, and this is only my personal experience, I had just got so preyed on that it burnt kind of that bridge for
Yeah,
me.
that's fine.
And
Yeah.
then I had gotten a support system. If it weren't for the support system I created, I would still be in those rooms, to be honest. But I don't even have time, let alone to like eat my salad for lunch
Yeah.
sometimes, let alone go to a
Uh,
meeting. But I do make my recovery a priority, which is, I pray every day. I write in my journal every day. I do gratitude every day. If I feel like picking up, I call someone,
good.
often someone in recovery. I know how to utilize my resources. And honestly, this time around, I really don't feel like drinking. I don't feel like drugging. Like, I just am so blessed because I got so fucking traumatized. Like, once I was left naked face down in the streets of Brooklyn and I had nothing but a hospital gown on my back. All my documentation was gone. All my debit cards were gone. They had made scams through my debit cards, got me in the negatives, and I had no phone. I had nothing. Um, I
I get
realized
it.
that how bad that's where my life goes if I turn to
Yeah.
that. So I never want to
And
turn to that again.
that keeps me sober. I'm coming up on 10 years. I passed 10 years. I'm celebrating next week.
Yes.
But it keeps some because I did relapse and I somehow survived 18 years out there and I came back And I know that if I pick up a drink, I'm a dead man. I just know
Right.
that.
Right.
And or drugs. We do got to begin to wrap up. And Melody has a great question that we ask all of our guests at the end that I think it's very apropos here, although it might
For
be a
sure.
little bit more complicated.
Yes.
Melody, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I do. I do. Allie, we usually ask for cult survivors, but I'm going to ask, obviously, as for human trafficking in your situation, if somebody happens to be listening that is in one of these situations and they don't know what to do, they don't know where to turn, they don't know where to go, what would be your words of advice to them? Because I know that they're scared. They don't know what they're scared to do anything. They're scared to make a move. What would be your words of advice to them?
Call me at 774-363-9113.
Great answer. And we will put that in the show notes.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
But
And
let's say
you
that they
better
don't have
reach
a
out
cell
to me or
phone where
someone. Yep.
they don't have a cell phone with a podcast, Apple Podcast with the show notes in it. If somebody it gets away from it, let's say they escape a human trafficking, kidnapping situation, which you did a couple times, where can they go? Because I heard you say specifically you don't trust. Like you went to an attorney and he turned on you. Went to a doctor
Right.
and he turned on you. Where can a victim who somehow maybe got out, or his kidnapper left her alone for 20 minutes or half or six, whatever, where would you send them so they could get safe and the help they need?
I would recommend that they look up local safe houses. They should look up the Safe House Project. The Safe House Project
Okay.
can literally get them in an Uber to a hotel, on a plane, to a safe house anywhere in the United States. If they're in certain states, I know private pilots that will take them on a plane to a safe house if they have no documentation. It's really, really tricky to get out. That's why only 1% make it
And
out.
I
And
think
that's
that's
why they
another.
need to find someone safe
I
to
think
talk
that's the other
to.
problem. Some of the Latinas that might get out are afraid to go to the authorities because
Yep.
they'll just deport them.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
for
could
sure.
keep I have a story about that. Maybe I'll come on another time, but like
Please.
that, there was we have a specific story in regard to that. And she was the one who ended up getting in trouble and sent back. And it's just, it makes me so sick. And unfortunately, my VP was the one who told me about this at the time, and she wasn't with me at the time. And she was like, I wish I would have met you 2 weeks before when I was working with this girl, because she works on a DV hotline right now. So
And I need to be fair. I mentioned Latinas. There's also a huge Asian population out there that that are being brought over here against their will, and I believe Filipino and Thai women. So there's a whole.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone is getting trafficked.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Where you're from. Someone is getting trafficked every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And they're usually in between the age of 12 and 17. It's very rare, my case, that people get trafficked as adults. Like, my story is very rare.
Yeah.
And I don't usually talk like this, but what the fuck is wrong with people? I just don't get it. It's just insane to me. I don't understand it.
Ali said it. There's good and there's evil.
Yes.
And there are evil people out there. And
Wow.
we're all not necessarily super religious, but we do believe in that higher power. But with that higher power, so everything that has I forget the terminology, but every opposite has an opposites. So if there's evil, there's good. And so it could be Satan, it could be whatever it is.
Yes.
But
to appreciate the light,
there are
you have
evil
to see
people
the
out
dark.
there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
Wow, Allie, what an excellent interview. We want to thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us all of this information, being vulnerable, sharing your own personal story, and giving hope to fellow survivors out there. I just can't even express how impressed I am.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And maybe we will have you back because you seem to have a lot more knowledge. After you, maybe in November when you celebrate your year and your organization has built up, and I don't know, also you seem like you have a book in you in there somewhere.
Oh, for sure.
Everyone keeps telling me that, but I just don't have time.
Not
I need to
now,
hire
but
someone.
You will.
I need to
Yes.
hire someone and just tell them my story and just, and then they can write it for me. But
Yeah.
could I end with a quote?
Absolutely. Go for it.
So something that got me through the toughest times are actually two quotes. Number one, you've survived 100% of your worst days, right? You've survived 100% of your worst days. Just keep it in the day. That's where I learned it from AANA. Keep it in the day, keep it in 24 hours, make it small, make
One
it
day
bite
at a time.
size.
Okay.
One day at a time, right? And the next one is, I'm going to cry. If you've done so much with so little for so long, you can do anything with nothing now.
Wow.
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 I've never heard that, and it makes so much
It's
sense.
amazing. Yes. Very good, inspiring quotes, especially for anybody who might be in even a cult situation, but it's certainly
Yep.
a human trafficking situation as well. Yeah,
Yep.
Allie, we can't thank you enough again for coming on the show, sharing your knowledge and your information, and those awesome quotes.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Well, put that in the show notes. Just as
Awesome.
we'll start off the summary that way, or end it something. Allie, thank you, and we hope maybe to have you back.
Awesome.
That'd be great.
That would be fantastic. You guys rock. Have a great one. Happy Friday.
Thank you. You
Thank
rock.
you.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And once again, we cannot thank Allie enough for coming on the show and sharing her story with us and educating us and offering her services and her personal number to fellow survivors. What an impressive person.
You know how brave
Yes.
it takes to do that? Just to come on and tell that kind of a story and then give out your phone number. And
Yes.
she was okay if we video that. And we don't video for other reasons, but she was okay if we did.
Yes.
Just a brave woman who's been through so much.
Absolutely. And you
don't have
mentioned
a word
having her
for it.
on again after the 1 year, but heck, we could have her on to tell her cult story too, because we know that she has a whole cult background that we didn't even touch on. We just kind of touched on it very, very, very lightly. But yeah, she's got the whole cult thing going on too, which I'm sure contributed, because I think I asked her that contributed to her ending up in these situations. But crazy that, I mean, that's the kind of shit that scares me, Andrew. Her first two traffickers were both professionals, like highly educated
And
professional businessmen.
Doctors, lawyers, and then the third one was a very well-known entertainer, which
yes, I just wow, just crazy. So yes,
and if it's happening to her, there's got to be I don't even want to pick a number, but it's going on everywhere, and it's still happening, and it's just horrible. So I personally want to thank her for coming on and telling her story. It moved me. Yes. And, once again, to the audience, we saw the body language, and she had a very kind of relaxed body language tonight. Yeah. She wasn't really, for someone who's just
confident
out of this ordeal.
Yes.
9 months.
She's got an immense amount of self-confidence, and she holds herself well. She knows what she's doing, and she's very focused. I believe her when she says that she's done with that world, and she's done with the drugs and alcohol. You can almost just see it in the way she carries herself. She carries herself with this air of confidence that she knows she's on a mission and a path, and it doesn't include that in her life anymore. But wow, Allie, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. And as always, we also want to thank all of you for tuning into Cultimatum. We appreciate each and every one of you for your support in our mission to expose the truth and highlight the voices of these survivors.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple and Spotify. And don't forget to follow, share, and keep listening to all of our latest episodes. And just quickly, if you haven't given us, we see the numbers, folks. We know how many people are listening to the episodes. We need more Apple and Spotify reviews. So please, if you could just take a moment, if you're enjoying the show, at the bottom, there's 5 stars. Just say, hey, great show. Submit.
It helps us out. We do appreciate it for sure.
Yes.
And you can also follow Cultimatum on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and YouTube for more content and updates.
Don't forget to join our Facebook group, Cultimatum Podcast, where we dive deeper into these important topics.
And if you are a cult survivor and you're looking for additional support, we do recommend joining the Cult Escape and Recovery group on Facebook.
If you're interested in more of my work, and this comes at a great time because my website has been redone, overhauled. It used to be just the Anonymous Andrew podcast, which was just one podcast, one thing. It is now encompasses all the podcasts. It is the anonymousandrewstudios.com or anonymousandrewpodcast.com, which is the Anonymous Andrew Studios, where you can go and get, I've started a blog, and you can listen to Cultimatum. You can listen to the other podcasts we have right from the website if you want to. And it's mobile friendly. So head over to anonymousandrewpodcast.com for all that information.
And if you have a story related to cults or human trafficking that you would like to share with us, please email us at cultimatumpodcast@gmail.com.
Want to support the show? Because we need your help. In the show notes, there is a link called Buy Us a Cup of Coffee. You click on that link and you can donate anything to the show. And we'd like to thank the people who have donated. We've had donations and
Yes.
they've helped a lot. Thank you.
And I'm just going to add that you can donate as little as $5, but even $5 makes a big difference.
It does.
So that's the minimum, and that's a pretty small amount. And just as always, stay safe, stay informed, and remember, you are not alone.